Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. And I'm going to be talking about collaboration on a pretty grand scale. It has created a ton of connections. And one of the things that we'll be talking about is the elements that I think make collaborations work over time. And also, you know, the element of luck that is involved in it. Our collaboration was a series of books. So let's go first edition. I started working on it in probably 1988. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karen.
89.
89. Okay, that's so much more recent. And then we, you know, are still working on things for the 5th edition, and there will be a 6th edition. So this has become pretty much a life's work. And the reason that it matters is, you know, when you talk about connections, this was, let me see, we got some numbers back when we were working on the 4th edition. So that was like 2010, 2011. And at that point, they estimated that 20 million children in the world had learned English using Let's Go in 160 something countries. We put together a little list once to see if we could do like an alphabet game. And the only letters missing were W and X. So as far as countries where Let's Go is being sold. And so it matters also because back when OUP talked to us about starting, you know, well, it wasn't exactly the dinosaur days, but it was 1989, which means there was no internet. And that is significant because sometimes, well, Ritsuko was pretty much always in Japan.
Yeah.
And I need to be. All right, that's what I get for having a touch screen. Okay, so our editors were almost always in New York. Ritsuko was always in Japan. Sometimes Karen started out in Taiwan and I started out in California. So in pre-internet days, for Oxford to decide that we could work with authors in 3 different countries, and editors in another location was big.
It was an experiment.
It was an experiment.
It was the first of its kind.
Yeah. Before Let's Go, it was kind of the beginning of mass teaching of children in English language schools. And at that time, there were materials, but they were designed for English as a second language. And so they were designed for children who would leave the classroom and be surrounded by English. Or they had currency, or they had flags, or they had a lot of information for, you know, like civics that children really didn't need in Japan, where or Taiwan or Korea, where our initial markets were, where children came to school, they had maybe 1 hour of English a week, and that was it. And so Oxford looked at that in the late 80s and said, you know, there might be a market for a book that is designed for English as a foreign language. And that was their experiment. That was us. So we didn't have other books to look at except ESL. And so sometimes we were here. Sometimes Karen and I moved around a few times. But ultimately, we were able to communicate slowly. And remember, again, no internet. So initially, Karen and Ritsuko were locked in a hotel room
for a week.
To put together the draft. Do you want to tell about it, Karen? Go ahead, because I wasn't there yet.
Yes, well, this was us working on the first draft. We were in Taipei, and it actually was at the end of the final draft of the first book. And we had received reviews from all over. And for various reasons, we determined that we needed to start the draft all over again and go a different direction. So we spent a lot of time in that hotel room rethinking the direction we were going to go with the manuscript.
Right. So now I'm talking about building a team here. So Ritsuko and Karen did not know each other before
at all.
The Let's Go project began. It was the Oxford knew them and put them together. And because the first draft didn't work, and because they were now behind schedule, I got to come in.
Yay.
Because they couldn't get the teacher's book done and the student book. So the first book took 2 years to complete. Now that's unimaginable in today's market. Okay, but again, we were the experiment and they wanted to get it right. And we still didn't know if we had it right. But this is the element of luck, okay? Because if Karen and Ritsuko hadn't fallen behind schedule because the draft didn't work, I wouldn't have had a chance to join the team. And from teacher's book author to reviewer to author, I was that irritating kid in your group that kept raising her hand saying, that's not going to work. So finally they thought, why don't you just come to
just join us.
So we became a team sort of by accident. But over the years, we could have just had one book and been done, to be perfectly honest. Originally, there were 4 books planned. And so to give you the spoiler alert, the things that I think are the most important over time with a collaboration that lasts as long as ours has is ability. Okay, if we didn't have the ability to write the book or the confidence that we knew what EFL children needed, we wouldn't have been able to do the work. We needed to have balance. Okay, we all had different skill sets and we all brought different eyes to the project. A lot of humor. I mean, if you have to tear up a manuscript and start over, it really helps to be able to laugh at it. And if you have to work with jet lag, 18-hour days,
late at night in the hotel rooms,
it's nice if you appreciate each other's humor.
Yeah.
There has to be respect. If you don't feel like equals, then it's really hard to be flexible, which is the next one, because all of us had children, and so we all were moving, and we had workshops, and we had life, and so there were times that somebody had to pull away a bit, and somebody had to pick up the slack, and if we didn't feel like equals, that wouldn't have survived.
True.
Right. There are author teams that I know of that have a difficult time spending any time together aside from the writing. And that would have been a really long 30 years if that had been like that.
But we became friends in the process.
Yeah. And family, really.
And family, yeah.
So the final thing is having a shared vision. Right? We all had taught with the ESL materials. We had all been in the classroom. We all had an idea of writing a book that was designed for children learning English as a foreign language.
And for teachers, in terms of what materials the teachers needed, because we knew as teachers in the ESL classroom what we needed and did not have.
Right.
Or EFL classroom.
Right. So our goal was to have material that was easy for teachers to teach and easy for students to learn. And so if we kept coming back to that, it made everything really easy. So quiz time. Everybody gets to write in chat. If you were back in prehistoric times, like before 1996, when there was no internet, which of these tools, and just in case you aren't familiar, there's a fax machine, there's a telephone, there's a computer, and there's a legal pad. Which do you think would be the most important tool to have available? Go ahead and type your answer in chat. Okay, we have one note for phone, notebook, fax. Okay, fax is getting a lot of votes here. So is notebook. And phone. Okay, nobody thinks the computer is very important. We did have computers, by the way. I mean,
we did,
I got my very first computer for Let's Go. It was a 40 gigabyte hard drive Dell. And I felt so high tech. I was like, who could ever need more than 40 gigabytes on a hard drive? So, okay, what is the answer, Karen?
It is the fax machine. It was the most important tool for us to use, and it would be running day and late at night, sending lots of pages of brainstorming, drawings. None of us were really artists, so we needed to kind of see what the other person was thinking, and the only way to do it was through the fax machine and what was sent between us or among us.
Yeah, and you have to have, we think time zones, right? So you could wake up and your front room would look like this. Now, we didn't have photographers following us around. In hindsight, right? If I'd known I was going to be doing this presentation, we would have had some videographers following us around back in the 80s to take pictures of all these things. But you would go out shopping and you'd come home and there would be
this.
And it was like thermal paper even.
That you had to cut.
You had to cut it off. And so and then you'd have to mark it up and then fax it back. Right, so yeah, but don't discount the legal pad.
We use that a lot.
We use that a lot. And so in the beginning, most of the meetings were either like in Santa Barbara where I lived, because I was kind of in the middle, or in Chicago where Karen was, or in New York where the editors were. You know, for obvious reasons, the editors were really keen to get out to California because I was in, you know, Santa Barbara by the beach. But we all met once every 6 months to live in the hotels and use those legal pads to just paper the walls of the hotel, or work in the office if we were in New York. And because we had families, we had a tendency to make the trips as short as possible, right? Because, you know, you have to do childcare and food and things like that. So we'd arrive and go right to work, and we'd work pretty much all day.
But sometimes life interfered. And that's what you see in the one picture in the hotel room with Barbara by the computer. And I had some yellow material in my hand making my daughter's Halloween costume that I had to express mail back to her in time for Halloween from the meeting.
In New York.
In New York.
So again, when I talked about the importance of having the ability, okay, we needed to hit the ground running. There wasn't time for, you know, soft coding anything or for anybody to feel anything less than able to do the work, because we didn't allow ourselves very much time. So every moment counted. So we would do the discussions in the daytime with the editing team, and then at night we'd go back to the hotel and fix everything or come up with another draft. And then the next day we'd go back and again get told that, yeah, that's not really working.
Let's
And
try something else.
and we try something else, and we try something else, and we try something else. And ultimately, we almost always came back to the original idea.
Yeah.
But we didn't know that it was the correct idea until we did all of the trying something else. So here an example, okay? We told you that our original market was Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. How could you illustrate rice? Now, if we were marketing the book in Mexico, they don't care what kind of bowl the rice is in. But Japanese children, or actually more teachers, Japanese teachers, Korean teachers, and Taiwanese teachers recognize their own rice bowls. So we needed to come up with a way of showing rice, because it's an important vocabulary word, but without alienating teachers in any of the countries that we're working with. So we went with a really nondescript bowl.
Yes.
I think we have the same bowl for ice cream.
I think so too.
Okay, now in those early days, we couldn't really show children in rooms wearing shoes because when we test marketed pictures of the kids in the house with shoes, the Japanese children were like, oh, what are they doing in the house with shoes? And the book is kind of set in somewhere America. And so, shoes are not usually left at the door. So our compromise was to show a lot of kids in socks in the house, but also to not show a lot of feet. So you don't know what they actually have on the bottoms of their feet. So here's an example of where we had the original idea. And then in the brainstorming at night, we finally got around to, she ran to the place with lace on her face, which didn't make it into the book, but at 3 a.m. we thought was hilarious. So hilarious that Karen bought a t-shirt to commemorate the lace place. Again, humor.
Giddy humor at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and and it may not sound very funny to you. That's okay. It's sort of like being around a group of preteen girls. We thought we were hilarious. Okay, here again with time zones. This was actually something that became really, really useful for us as we became able to work around the clock, like when we actually had internet. Because when it was Monday, where Karen lived, it was still Sunday, where Ritsuko and Barbara lived. And so Karen could finish her work and then send it to us at the end of her day, and we'd still have another day to get it together before having to send it to New York. Mm-hmm. And so I mentioned to you that the first edition took 2 years, or the first book of the first edition took 2 years. Every subsequent book took a year. So that means the first edition of Let's Go took 10 years to complete, which is impossible to imagine now. And so when we got around to working on like the 4th edition, for example, okay, we had most other publishers had author teams, 2 or 3 people working on one book or 2 books, and 2 or 3 people working on another level, and 2 or 3 people working on another level, all at the same time. But the way we had written Let's Go was all of us on all of the books, which we thought was a real strength because we knew where all of the vocabulary was, we knew where the grammar was, we knew where the topics were, and we had this whole time zone thing, so we could work around the clock. And so at that point, we looked at our schedule for the 4th edition, and we had 2 months per book to finish 7 books.
Yeah, it was 7.
Yeah, 7 at that point. And we said, yeah, we'll do it. We can do it faster than bringing other people into the team. Because if we bring somebody in now after working together for 20 years, we're going to have to explain to them where those things are when we already know.
And how we work. I mean, just the
Right.
whole procedures that we followed.
Yeah, and with the, like we talked about flexibility, that like whoever had the time would write the first draft. And then all three of us would revise the draft. And once we had internet, we could do that on Skype live, or we could do it, looking at Google Docs. But the idea was that I could ask myself, what would Ritsuko say about this? And I knew. Or Karen could say, how would Barb see this problem?
Yeah.
And she knew. That's the whole finishing each other's sentences part. But we also knew each other's strengths well enough that even if they weren't our personal strengths, we could usually guess what the other person would identify as being an issue. So the time zones and the ability to channel each other made it possible for three of us to put together 7 books in a year. Anything else, Karen?
Oh, I think you've covered it pretty well. Although I would say that our first edition didn't take quite 10 years. I think it was about 6 or 7 total by the time.
Okay, so the second edition came out 10 years
Right.
later. Right.
Right.
Okay. So originally, Let's Go was going to be 4 levels. So they planned on having a 4-level course book series. They got to the end of book 4 and it's like, whoa, baby, people are buying this stuff. We should have some more books because we need to have, the market is telling us we need a 6-level series. And so that's why we have books 5 and 6. And it wasn't until we got to 4th edition that we were able to completely tear apart the syllabus and rearrange it without having the first 4 books already complete.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But here.
And how did we do it? And where were we when we were doing it?
Different
time zones, however.
Yeah, I think the left one is me on the floor in an airport someplace in Europe, probably Scandinavia. And the one on the right is Karen on a road trip someplace in the east.
New England. We were looking at leaves.
Okay.
Yeah. Taking my father on a leaf trip. And he was in his 90s at that point.
Yes. So once we had internet, we were good to go.
Yeah.
This is what the brainstorming might look like in a Google Doc. And again, we've got the humor. Karen and Ritsuko got onto a riff about how scary the basement was. Now, did that help the book?
Not at all.
Probably not. But it, chances are we were all awake. So this was either very early in the morning or it was very late, because later on there's a comment saying, hey, we're all awake. Why don't we have a Skype and see if we can work this out? So what we would do here, this is coming up with new language for the 5th edition. And so again, whoever had time did the first draft, and then we each had our own color for typing our comments in and adding, we had comments on the side, but quite often we would just add to the document in whatever color we were using, but they were always distinct colors, so we knew who had added it. Yeah. Sometimes I almost always grabbed pink. So
almost always was right. I usually was green.
and Ritsuko usually went between purple and brown. She couldn't really decide. But that way we knew who'd done what. And so again, we could pick it up, and then from the Google Doc, we would turn it into a proper manuscript and then send it to our editor in New York. Again, one of the reasons that you have to have equal respect for people and you have to have the ability is you need your team to let you know that no matter how beautiful and magical your idea is,
it may not work.
It isn't gonna work.
And sometimes that's not an easy thing to do.
No.
Because you know if somebody is really taken with their idea, that it might be a bitter pill to swallow. But as a team, we really understood what one another was trying to say. And
it goes back to the shared vision. Okay. Right. At the end of the day, we wanted to have a book that was easy for teachers to use and would help children learn English. And so everything got filtered in that, with that filter. And so it was really easy. Well, no, it wasn't always easy to have somebody tell you that, you know, your poop might be rainbow, but it still doesn't work. But it was easier. And if one of us had been like lacking confidence, if we weren't really sure of ourselves, then it would be really hard to take the criticism. And every once in a while, we would get a new author or a new editor, and the editor might start out sort of using that sandwich approach, where they tell you something really good, and then they tell you what the problem is, and then they tell you something else really good. And we would have to go back and say, look, we really don't have time for this. Just tell us what doesn't work.
Yeah.
we have big enough egos to believe that we're okay. I mentioned the 162 countries. In the very beginning, we only had 2 countries that were really an issue. And in the second edition, we started selling books in China. Now, Taiwan was one of our biggest markets. So we had to come up with a way to have both Taiwanese teachers and children and the Chinese government okay with our book. And as I recall, the main way that we did it was not using country names.
Right.
So we have Taipei
city names
and Beijing, because nobody has a problem with Taipei existing as a city. Nobody has a problem with Beijing existing as a city. The country name of Taiwan, a few million people have some problems with it. So that was the way we balanced that. As the book grew, there became more issues like this. But that was early on a hint of, it was way before we had to start marketing things in North Africa and the Middle East. Okay, now, a children's book has at most, if they're smart, no more than 8 to 10 vocabulary words in a lesson. In our kindergarten book, we had 4. So if you look at all the vocabulary you can choose from for kindergarten children, which 4 vocabulary words would be the most essential? You can type them in chat. Which 4 would you pick? And usually the children's teachers really rock this question. Okay. Hand, head, leg, and something. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Head, shoulders, knees. That's usually what happens. Eyes, ears, nose. Okay. Yeah. Okay, those are all really important. And every time we looked at a lesson, we had to choose which 4 or which 8, or if it was colors, maybe 10 words were going to be the most productive for children. So there were words that we thought were wonderful words, but not high frequency for kids. And there are words that are really high frequency for kids that are not really high frequency words for the general population. But for this one, you're right, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Now, we have an original Carolyn Graham song, so it doesn't follow the head, shoulders, knees, and toes, but almost every teacher knows that song. Most children come into class knowing that song. And so it's a great bit of vocabulary to start with. They can point to it. They know what it is. The reason we went with, one reason we went with a different song was because we had Carolyn Graham. But the other reason that we asked Carolyn to write a different song was because the traditional song, children aren't really clear on the vocabulary after shoulders. Knees and toes becomes like LMNOP in the alphabet, right? It's not distinct. And so we had Carolyn come up with a song that we asked Carolyn, we don't have Carolyn do anything. We asked Carolyn very politely, please come up with a song that separates those body parts. And she came up with something brilliant as always. But again, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but we could spend, there's one bit of vocabulary I'm going to show you later that we have spent 30 years trying to get it right. But we often spent days trying to come up with the vocabulary that was going to work the best.
And we often, in the beginning with the first edition, people would ask, why does it take so long? It's just a children's book. But this was part of the reason. We were trying to find the right mix of the vocabulary words and the language so that we would give the children what they needed to have to build their language.
At least what we thought they needed to have.
Right.
Now, we were the first EFL textbook out there, but there are lots of choices now. And in each case, the authors have done the same thing of deciding what they think is the most important for the children, their ideal student or their ideal teacher, the person that they have in mind when they're writing their book. And it's wonderful that there are so many choices now. I'm so happy every time I see all of the books that teachers can choose from. I'm a little bit less happy when I see the pirated copies of Let's Go. I'm not so thrilled when I see the copies of Let's Go that have different covers on them. But, still, choice is really, really wonderful. And I'm so glad that our market has grown to support all of these choices, right? Now, these are the people that we always had in mind when we were writing. The children have, children around the world. If you walk into 2 classrooms in the same country, you're going to see the books used differently. If you walk into 2 classrooms in different countries, you're going to see the books used differently, which is why, in our case, since we're a global course book series as opposed to a regional, right? So there are course books that are written pretty much just for Japan. And so they can be very, very specific about cultural things that are going to be really valuable in Japan or in Asia, if they're regional, or, in Latin America, if they're in that part of the world. In our case, there isn't a continent except perhaps the Arctic and Antarctica where you can't buy Let's Go. And so, we have teachers that'll go into a bookstore in Zimbabwe where there is no Oxford representative, and they will find the book on a shelf. They will flip it open and they'll say, oh, I could teach this. Mm-hmm. I know what to do. And they will be able to teach it because it's transparent. And so we want to make sure that the students that are using Let's Go, even if they have an inexperienced teacher, or even if their teacher doesn't feel that confident using English, that they're still going to be able to learn English because everything is so clear. And that's really important to us. Over the years, we have stripped out any unnecessary language so that everything recycles through all 8 books now.
Yes.
So everything recycles all through the series, right? So the oral language that they learn in kindergarten becomes the keywords that they use for phonics in what is considered a first grade book. And then they keep building the oral language. They keep using that language to learn how to read. They use the language they learned how to read to learn how to write. And it just keeps recycling. So in our collaborative team, we always had the students in mind. But the team isn't just authors. Okay? Through our editors, we have a team in New York. And this is just a few. This is like pre-digital. Okay, so there's different people who did the music and different people who did the recording the voice actors. And there's people who do the digital, and there's people who do the learning management system. And so it's a really, really long list. And one reason that publishers are so careful about putting together course books like this, and one reason we were so lucky that they were willing to support the experiment that became Let's Go, is a book like Let's Go, over 6 to 8 books, can easily cost over $3 million by the time they're done. And so, you make decisions a little bit differently when you're dealing with that level of investment. We have been super lucky. I mean, I keep saying luck over and over again.
But it's true.
It's really true. Like, our initial editors took a chance on letting us work in different countries and thinking that we could do it with a fax machine and a legal pad, and that we could get by with meeting every 6 months. Our current senior editor started out using Let's Go as a teacher, and trusted us for the 5th edition to again do the whole thing with the 3 of us, even though it was an incredibly tight schedule. We thought 4th edition was fast. 5th edition
was unbelievable. That's why we were working in the cars and on the airport floors.
But it was really important to us to meet the trust that was shown in our collaborative team, right? We had a lot of people depending on us getting our end of the work done by a deadline so they could meet their deadlines, because the ultimate deadline is books on the shelf. And from our draft to editorial and back to us for revisions and back to editorial, and then to go out to all of those designers and production managers and artists, and they had to buy things and contract musicians, and all of that had to happen before books on the shelf. So that's why you saw us working in airports and in cars. And we are really, really grateful to have an editorial team with a publisher that is still willing to support us working this way. Right. And not everybody has that. And it's a very expensive way for a publisher to put things together, to be honest, because it's much faster to have a whole bunch of writers and working at the same time and have an editorial team work on continuity. But we think the working together for continuity, with us creating the continuity, was a much stronger approach. And this is some of the new team Karen met when she was in New York. So our team keeps growing to include more and more people. And at the other side, we never forget the other part of our collaborative team, and that's the teachers that we work with. We have always been very accessible, even before internet. We were very easy to approach. I think, I have no idea why, but we didn't look like traditional authors.
I think a lot of it is because we had all been teachers in the classroom.
Probably.
And we approached the way we presented the material to the teachers as teachers that had the same type of experience that they are having.
Right.
And they felt that they could ask us the questions that they had.
So on the one side, we had the editorial team and all of those people in New York. And on the other side of us, we had teachers around the world who were using our books and their students. And so we actually have a really big collaborative team. When you talk about connections, we hear from teachers a lot. They have no problem walking up to us at conferences and letting us know what we did wrong. Yes. Or pointing out our mistakes. So when we did the 4th edition, we had decided to have a mistake-free edition. And so New York started sending us all of the proofs. Okay, this is a 2nd page proof, I think. So there's actually some art there. 1st page has no art. And so we all looked at this page. I'm wondering if any of you find a mistake here. We all looked at this page. The editors looked at the page. The proofreaders looked at the page. The authors looked at the page. And we still printed 200,000 posters for promotion with that page and that mistake. So, and it was pointed out to us by a teacher in a workshop. So again, you know, it's good to have a sense of humor about yourself too, because famous last words saying, we're not going to make any mistakes. In the 5th edition, we didn't change a lot. But again, I mentioned how the teachers were also part of our collaborative team. Unbeknownst to us, Oxford did a huge vote to ask teachers around the world to vote on their 3 least favorite readings in each book. Oxford came back to us at our first launch meeting and said, okay, so teachers voted these 3 readings off the island for every book. So you need to come up with new readings, but they have to have exactly the same phonics words because we're not changing any cards. So you have to use the same phonics words and you have to come up with a new reading. And then just because this is so much fun, we're going to add a new reading. This is the brainstorming for it. We're going to add a new reading in the workbook that also uses the same phonics words and has no new vocabulary and no new grammar. So again, we went to Google Docs and we have the original reading, we had the grammar, and we had our brainstorming, and we had a lot of versions that we went through.
We sure did.
So if you picture, I don't know if it's pickup sticks or Jenga, but basically it's taking out one piece and putting a totally different piece right back in that same spot without making any ripples. Because again, our vocabulary is really tight. The grammar is really tight. It's not like we can just add a word in there that doesn't already exist in the book because we can't. So it was an interesting brainstorming experiment. And then we ended up with, and it was great. I mean, I love having the readings in the workbook. Teachers wanted to have more independent reading opportunities for their kids. And so now they have 2 stories that the kids can read because we don't introduce new language in the readings. So, you know, a lot of books, 2 different approaches. One is to use the reading to teach the language. Let's Go is to use the reading to practice the new skill of reading using familiar language. So it's just a different approach. But we were locked into a corner on that one. And here, we're going to finish up with the vocabulary that we have never been able to solve. 30 years plus.
Yes, plus.
Okay, so we talked about words that are very high frequency for kids or very useful for kids. And we had young, old, tall, short, pretty, ugly, and thin and fat. And this is a really cute spread We have the cats pointing out the pictures, and we had fairy tale people. Who could hate fairy tale people? Unfortunately, what the feedback we got from teachers was that they didn't like being called ugly and fat by their students.
Or old.
Or old. Because the very first thing the kids did when they learned these exciting new words was describe their teacher. The second thing they did was describe each other. And so the teachers came back to us and said, no, 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 we don't want to teach that. So we thought, okay, you know, it's the art. Okay, we just need to have better art for this. So we got cuter fairy tale people. And now we have an ugly old guy. So it's not a witch, not a woman. We even tried this with a cat family.
Yeah, we did.
Where the ugly is the boy cat going, yeah, making an ugly face. And we got the same feedback. And ultimately, where we are now is we got rid of ugly and fat. So
yeah.
We still have old because we need that for family, but we've gone with 2 ways of describing people who are good, attractive, so that the students can now describe their female teachers and their male teachers with equally positive phrases. And we figured that teachers can teach fat and ugly. I mean, we only have 6 words on the page here, right? So you're going to probably want to supplement. That's one of the ideas of creating a space for teaching is the initial language is very easy and it doesn't take much for students to learn it. So that gives teachers time to practice it and use it, recycling it with previously learned language, or to practice reading it, or to bring in vocabulary that students want to know how to say with the pattern or in that context, or anything like that. So if you have a good solution for this one, we're all ears. So I have a question here. So from Namiko about, since Let's Go has a global perspective, do we find that our high frequency list differs from, let's say, Fry's list or New Dolch list? Yeah, actually, because those are designed for children learning English as the first language. So when children learn how to read for example, in English, if children in the United States are learning to read, that's usually at about 6 years old when they start getting either phonics or sight words or whole language or whatever approach is in vogue at the moment. At the time. They already start out knowing between 2,500 and up to 5,000 words. The difference is whether or not their parents read to them when they were little, usually. But they have a really large passive vocabulary. So all they have to do in their reading is to attach the sounds to symbols or to attach the words to the meaning. In some, I shouldn't say a lot, in some EFL textbooks, authors have imported the American approach, synthetic phonics or word families, again, whatever approach is in vogue at the moment. They'll import that approach wholesale. And that means that the children have to not just learn the word old, for example, and how to read the word old, they also have to learn the meaning for the word old. So one big way that Let's Go differs from that is we figure by the time children are learning how to read in Let's Go, they might have a passive vocabulary, a dependable passive vocabulary of maybe 300 to 500 words. And so what we wanted to do is bring the approach, and we use a synthetic phonics approach at the moment, but we wanted to bring the approach into an EFL context. So we developed that passive vocabulary through the activities in the book and the readings in the book and the songs. And so when children started learning how to read, we used the language from their world, which was the textbook. So they had the cognitive load on them to learn to read would be the same as a child learning in the first language, as opposed to having an extra step of having to not just learn the word, but also the meaning and how to read it. So that's a big way that it differs from those word lists. Now there's some overlap, of course, because, you know, some words are short on both, but some of the words that are on that list are not in Let's Go because they don't work with that vision, that shared vision that we have of creating an English world that'll get children reading and writing in English in 6 years. So hopefully that answered the question. Anything to add to that, Karen, before I move on?
No, I think that was a good response.
Because we're almost done. So collaborating with a team over years and years is not all unicorns and rainbows.
No.
We have seen the deaths of 2 authors. We've seen a lot of births. Seen kids go off to college. We've seen each other go through life changes. But if you have the ability, balance of skills, good sense of humor, respect for the people on your team, the flexibility where it doesn't matter who does what, and a shared vision, you know, sometimes you do end up with some magic. And that's about all I had to say. So if there are any other questions.
And I will just add to that, what you just said, Barbara, there really indeed has always been magic when we did the Let's Go brainstorming. It's been like incredible. Magic, it really did feel like magic when the 3 of us would get together, whether it was in the office in New York or whether it was in the hotel room after a full day of work. The magic just continued to go, and we would bounce ideas off of each other, and it was incredible to see what we ended up coming up with.
So Jessie, I'm really curious to see how we're going to address that as well. I think Jessie's asking about gender pronouns. I do know that we will be one of the last ones to make changes, simply because we are a children's book. And we are used in country. Our children barely have parents. So, you know, our
some
kids
countries,
no. I mean, in our books.
In our books. Oh, yeah. Okay.
They only have parents in the book, but the parents good props.
Yeah.
I mean, we had kids walking around town asking for directions, thinking, you know, that really probably isn't very realistic to have these 8-year-olds out by themselves on the street saying, "Excuse me, how do I get to?" But yeah, no, we you know, it's not a real world.
Yeah.
We are definitely.
It's a Let's Go world.
It's a Let's Go world. Yeah. Our children are always happy and helpful, and parents appear when they are needed, and they disappear when they're not. Everybody cleans their room.
Usually.
Well, unless it's a lesson point.
Right.
You know, and if you have to say I haven't cleaned it yet, then they didn't clean it. So yeah, but yeah, we do know. I mean, we've heard that there will be a 6th edition, and I don't know if that'll be something they address. But I know that because of our global audience, I can tell you that regional course books will address that much sooner than we do.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we don't even have any ham in our books anymore.
No.
And people don't touch their animals because that's dirty. And so, and everybody's covered with rash guards and sun safe outfits. So, you know, we are not we were trendsetters back in 1990 when we were the first EFL book on the market. But we are I know that we're going to see a lot of information about gender inclusion and things like that in course books that are written for very specific markets. But it'll be.
But I really think something about the collaboration is that collaborating authors on any team really need to have a big vision of what the goal is and be flexible and understand the different markets that the material is being designed for. And sometimes you have to kind of let go of some of the things that you personally might feel very strongly about to come to a consensus about the material that you are putting together for a global book.
So for example, again, that shared vision, right? The goal is to have an easy to use course book that teachers can adapt in their own lessons to be whatever it is they need it to be. So when there's so many wonderful foods to choose from and you only get to have 8 on the page,
it's hard.
But it's pretty easy to come up with an alternative to ham, right?
Yeah.
When having ham is going to be a barrier to getting your book into people's hands versus coming up with another food to put there. And we didn't ever have a problem with making those changes.
Yeah.
And some people do. Everybody's got a different line in the sand. So we went over time a little bit. So I don't want to keep you guys, but if there are any other questions, one more, please. Okay. How about teaching colors? Picture dictionary. I know, I love the picture dictionary. It got replaced.
I do too.
It got replaced by the which is the Children's Picture Dictionary? What's it called?
I think so. Oxford Children's Picture Dictionary.
Right. So they came up with one picture dictionary that worked for all of their course books. Not as good as ours, but
we're a little biased.
We don't always get a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Carla asked about teaching colors. Young students making sentences about skin colors. We don't teach skin colors. No. That's how we do that. So in the same way that we don't have ways for children to describe their teachers as old, fat, and ugly, we also don't have skin colors. We have kids that are different colors. We have characters in the books that are different colors, but we don't have any activities that describes his skin color. And we don't make an issue of when they color in the picture. So we just totally sidestepped that one. But again, we have generally teachers using the books that are teaching in countries where the students share an ethnic background, because English as a foreign language. Like ESL classrooms have kids from everywhere. Teachers working in Japan usually have Japanese kids in the class. Teachers in Dubai usually have Arabic kids in the class, or Arabic. I'm gonna get myself in trouble here with getting wrong endings on words. My students do that all the time. But if we have, teachers in Mexico, for example, their kids are largely going to have a shared background. So we don't run into the same issues as ESL teachers do with that either.
Right.
Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, and I'm sorry we don't have a really great answer for that. Again, being a global course book isn't usually pushing the boundaries on inclusion or adding new trendy vocabulary, because again, we want to be the clearest, simplest, easiest to use book that teachers can have, and they can add anything else they want to it.
Well, and that's really what was behind Let's Go from the beginning. We provided a basic framework, and then the teachers could add additional materials as they needed for their particular classroom and market.
Right. Okay, so I think that is the end of the questions. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and for being so patient with all of our stories.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Yoko Takano has raised her hand to ask her question. So,
Barbara, Karen, how about doing a silent player for Let's Go? I really miss her, and we are so happy to have an amazing women. So how about do the silent play for Let's Go?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. That's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, we miss her a lot.
Yes,
a lot.
Yes.
very much.
It's a big hole for us, and doing the next edition without her is going to be really, really hard. But luckily, we have 30 years of being able to say,
what would Ritsuko say? Yeah.
And we know. So we think of her every day.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing her up. And that's why we have so many pictures of her. And there are very few pictures of the three of us together, by the way. They're almost all in this presentation.
Yeah.
Because we were usually in 3 different countries. So thank you. So, and thank you, Karen, for helping me out.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be with all of you today. This was a treat for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice memory for Ritsuko too, from Corazon. So thank you very much for remembering her.
Thank you.
So, and I have her map books up here on my shelf. So, okay, so I'll turn off my video and stop sharing. And I think
for Bar.
There were a lot of really good questions.
There were a lot of really good questions. Yeah. Well, we'd like to take the next 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes is good. Take a break, get a glass of water, use the bathroom if you need to, and come back because you don't want to miss a minute of Mari's presentation either. So is Mari. And we're all looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Take it away, Mari.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hey.
Hi. Can you see me? I'm so excited to be here. And now let me share my screen. Hope it works. It's gonna work. All right. Can you see my screen, Ruthie? Okay. Yep. All right. Let me start now. Hello, everybody. My name is Mari Nakamura. I've been teaching English to young learners ages from 5 to 18 at my own school in Hokuriku region. Maybe you know where Hokuriku is. It's up there on the rainy side of Japan. Beautiful. And it has been an incredible journey with lots of excitements and joys and some twists and turns throughout the years. And I can say one thing for sure. Collaboration with peers at JALT community, this JALT community has always been the backbone of my professional development. So I'm feeling very honored to be here today with you. And I'm going to talk about some intercultural collaboration that I've been doing at my school today. And I've been doing this kind of intercultural collaboration with foreign teachers in different countries for over several years now. And we've been exchanging letters and emails and pictures and videos over the internet, and actual letters were exchanged too. And so far, I've carried out 12 projects, and I have conducted 2 studies before. And these studies have indicated that such programs can promote students' agency, co-agency, awareness of English as a lingua franca, and curiosity for intercultural things and like foreign cultures, and motivation to further their English study, and also empathy. And I've been doing careful classroom observations throughout these years, and I've noticed that maybe these projects can promote the students' critical thinking skills, problem solving and collaboration skills, creativity, and digital literacy as well. And, sorry, let me go back a little bit. And in terms of core skills, there have been lots of definitions and frameworks put forward by scholars and some, educational institutions. So let me just introduce one of the frameworks put forward by British Council today. As you can see, core skills can include critical thinking and problem solving, and collaboration and communication, and creativity and imagination, and citizenship, and digital literacy, and student leadership and personal development. I included, the publication title on the bottom. So if you're interested, please take a look at this quite a substantial volume of research and practical application, maybe later today. In this session, I'm going to share 2 of the most recent projects at my own school. One of them, I'm going to start from this one, is a 1 day in the life project. This is a project with a public high school in Moldova. And I think today that teacher is here, Ms. Podaru. I met her through the internet. We both of us registered ourselves on the internet on the website called iEarn. iEarn is international NPA that promotes intercultural study and collaboration. And we met on the site, and actually she contacted me through email, and I feel the enthusiasm and collaborative skill in her, so I decided to start the project with her. Moldova, have you heard of anything about Moldova? Quite honestly, I'm very sorry to say this, but I didn't know anything about this country. And I learned a lot through these projects. Their first language is Romanian, and English education starts at grade 10. And in this project, 7 grade 10 students from Moldova and 7 grade 7 students at my school have collaborated. And we decided to use Padlet, that is an online bulletin board, and Google Meet. So Padlet is for not the synchronous communication, but asynchronous communication between the students, and Google Meet for the real-time communication. And the project was from January 2020 and June 2021. And it's been a quite a long project, and I conducted a mid-project reflection task with my students. I asked the students about these elements: enjoyment, effort, newly acquired skills, and dissatisfaction, and future improvement. And in this session, I'm going to share what we have done in the first half of the project. And also, I'm going to share with you how my students responded in reflection tasks, and how I responded to their reflection, and how I made the changes to the program. So this project started with a self-introduction through text and video. As I mentioned, we use Padlet. Padlet is an online bulletin board, which is really easy to use. So I recommend that you look into that if you haven't yet. And as you can see on the screen, the videos and were very, very short. It's like 20 seconds or so. And my students also added some text. I told my students to make it natural, relax, and try not to, show you like a big person. And my students did that. And I want you to see 2 of the samples of my students' videos. Here's the first one by a girl. Please take a look. Very simple and nice video.
Hello, my name is Hina. I'm 13 years old. I like swimming very much. I practice it 4 times a week. Next week, I have a competition. I want to do my best to make a new record. What sport do you like? I want to know more about everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a very straightforward, short presentation without too much practice. And most of the students did the similar thing, but one of the students did something very interesting and creative. So please take a look at her presentation now.
Hello, my name is Marina Nagasawa. I'm 13. I'm in a kendo club. Kendo is Japanese culture. I will do it now. Man. That's all. Thank you for listening. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was a very simple video, but still very nice to see and quite entertaining. And in the reflection task, she wrote this. I wanted my Moldovan friends to learn about kendo because she had, she belonged to the kendo club, and she came up with this video idea. I was very excited to see the comment by a student who wrote he was practicing martial art too. She also mentioned that she didn't know that, foreign students do martial arts too. So that was a big surprise for her and very encouraging for her. In the same way, students in Moldova also shared their videos and text messages at the beginning. And as you can see, they look so mature. And some of the videos were really of good quality, very nicely produced and edited. And my students went, wow. Now, please take a look at one example here.
Good morning. Today I woke up at 7 a.m. I did my morning routine. I didn't eat anything, I only drank tea. At 8:15 a.m. I started my online class. At 2 p.m. the lessons were over and I had lunch. Then I rested a bit and took a walk. At 6 p.m. I started my homework and made my backpack. I had dinner and went to bed because tomorrow is another beautiful day.
Isn't it amazing? She used TikTok and produced this video and shared on Padlet. And here is one of the comments from my students. I was surprised that our Moldovan friends look so mature and made super cool videos. Videos are great tools to show who we are. I want to learn how to make such videos. So these videos inspired my students to try something new and create something very unique for themselves. All right, so after the self-introduction from both ends, I asked this question to my students. What do you want the first DMO's exchange to be? They are grade 7 students. Do you have any ideas? If you have any ideas, please put in a chat box. Ruthie, can you see the chat box and tell me if there are any?
Yes. So far, let's see. Food. That's Jackie. I would second that.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. You are right.
References. Greeting words.
Of course, my students said food. Yeah, food. It's really interesting because these students have been doing this kind of projects for several times now. And every time we start the project, they say they want to write or talk about food. But there are now grade 7 students, and they're so used to this kind of projects. So I wanted them to think a little more deeply about what they really wanted to say, because they always talk about sushi and wagashi, Japanese sweets. And they say, we have special Japanese sweets in Kanazawa. I love Kanazawa, that kind of thing. So I really wanted to dig a little, wanted them to dig a little deeper. So I told them this. We need to create a focus to have a meaningful exchange. Brainstorm among yourselves what you exactly would like to share. So I think about 15 minutes for my students to discuss among themselves on a Zoom lesson. And they did discussion using both English and Japanese. And I stepped away from it. And, I was hearing that, but step away of it. And the topic they chose in terms of food is the same as our ordinary meals. So they chose not to write or talk about sushi, the traditional Japanese food, or like Kanazawa is famous for Japanese sweets, but they wanted to describe their ordinary meals. So I thought, okay, maybe that's a good idea. So I gave them homework. I said, make a post on this theme, and you can use any apps of your choice, because they were so excited about using, making videos. thanks to the post from Moldovan friends. But I told them, make sure you get a parental permission to do so. I think this point is very important for the safety. And here is one of the works that my students made. On the left side, you can see that text post, and she made this text post and the video, on Padlet. The video is very, very simple. No words, no text, just the pictures and the cute music. And on the left side is the text. So please take a look at the video and read the post at the same time. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is what children really eat. I was surprised that, her mom or dad are really, really good cook. So surprised. Okay, and as you can see, she mentioned fast food. And many of my students mentioned fast food and put up the videos or pictures that include the fast food. And then we've got this response from one of the Moldovan friends. The importance of food in our life. This student wrote this. Food plays a very important role in human life. Therefore, we need to eat healthier foods and refrain from fast food and energy drinks that can affect our health. Through this food, man prolongs his life as energy and power. Okay, that's a really good point. I was like, whoa, this is really amazing. So if you were the teacher of this class, if you were managing this project, what sort of lesson would you prepare for your students? I got this message on Sunday, and my next regular lesson with this group of students is on Monday. So I had only one day to prepare for the next step of this project. So what would you do? Do you have any ideas? So if you have any ideas, please type in the chat box. Go ahead.
Marion thinks they can understand and hear it from their own age group rather than from teachers and parents. Healthy food in Japan, Japan superfood.
Japan superfood?
Japan superfood. It's Gabi.
Anything else?
Healthy or unhealthy food. That's Yuki.
Thank you.
Good and bad points of fast food.
And one more, please, Ruthie.
Okay. What defines healthy food? That's
that's deep. What defines healthy food? That's really deep. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So I really recall that, on Sunday night and Monday morning, I frantically, look for some resources on the net. And I was thinking, oh my God, what kind of lesson can I plan? And I found this graphic. This graphic was designed by the US Department of Agriculture to educate the people to have the healthy diet. And this graphic itself is really simple. Maybe some of you may agree or disagree with this graphic, especially about the dairy products. And it's really simple, but if you visit the website, it shows more detailed information and resources for teachers, educators, and parents and children. So I recommend that you look into that page. And I looked into that page and I thought, okay, this is maybe a good idea, starting point for discussion. And I was looking for the video, and I found quite a nice video for my students' age group on YouTube. So I decided to use this video too. Now let me play the video. Maybe I will play, just a half of the video now. Okay, please take a look. It's a video about My Plate concept.
My Plate is a graphic designed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA, to help remind us of what and how much we should be eating. The graphic is composed of different sections of various sizes and colors, so you can quickly see how much of these foods to eat at each meal. Let's break My Plate down into the different sections. The red section, which can be found in the top left of the plate, represents fruits. Fruits contain vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Fruits may be fresh, canned, frozen, or dried, and may be whole, cut up, or pureed. Fruit juices have more calories per serving than whole fruit and don't contain the fiber, so whole fruit is the best choice. You can enjoy fruit with meals, as snacks, or as a dessert. The fruit section of the plate is slightly smaller than the vegetable section, but together fruits and vegetables should fill half your plate. The green section represents vegetables and can be found below the fruit section. Vegetables are naturally low in calories, and the fiber in them helps us feel full. Choose a variety of colorful vegetables prepared by steaming, sautéing, roasting, or raw. Add fresh, frozen, or canned vegetables to salads, sides, and main dishes. This is one of the largest sections of the plate because vegetables provide many of the vitamins and minerals needed for good health. The top right of the plate, the orange section, shows the amount of grains that should be on the plate. Whole grains, like whole wheat flour, are more nutritious and have lots of dietary fiber that can help you feel fuller longer. Refined grains, such as white flour, have been processed, removing vitamins, minerals, and fiber.
Okay, so video goes like this. And I planned this sub-project, My Plate project, for my students. And the learning objectives I chose for this sub-project there are two. One is to understand the concept for the students, to understand the concept on My Plate and reflect on their diets, and to create presentations that discuss how the ordinary meals are related to what My Plate suggests and share them with Moldovan friends. And this is a lesson flow. I showed the students a public post on the healthy diet from the Moldovan students in class and discussed what we think of her idea, what we thought of her idea. So I asked these questions. What do you think of her idea? And my students answered. Do you think you can refrain from eating junk food? That is a big question for them. And I asked why. And I also introduced the My Plate graphic to students. On the Zoom lesson, I share the screen. And I asked this question. Have you ever learned about My Plate in your home economics class? The answer was no. They had a different graphic that they use at school. And I explained the concept on My Plate while editing some of the students' ideas. For example, I asked these questions. Which food group is the most important? Do you think you are eating enough vegetables? My answer was no. Okay. And then I showed the video to my students and I said, but I did activity like this. I showed the video twice because, the video was quite challenging for my students. And I played the video segment by segment after that. And I explained the important concepts and vocabulary while asking them personalized questions. And I typed in some key vocabulary items in the Zoom chat box for the students to copy in their notebooks. So the keys are, you can see here, there are two keys: to tap into their curiosity and expand their knowledge on nutrition and a healthy diet. And a second key point is to ask questions that encourage students to think critically by making connections between My Plate and their daily diets. And here is the homework plan that I had. Okay, so the first week's homework was to create a presentation that connects the concept of My Plate and your own diet. It can be a speech, essay, video, or PowerPoint presentation. In the first week, upload your presentation on the class Padlet page, not on the exchange page, but their own class Padlet page that we've been using in the daily lessons. And I'm gonna send you suggestions, so read suggestions from me and make changes as you will. And I said, questions are welcome, so you can send me email. In the second week, upload a revised version on the Moldovan Japan project page. So as a preparation, I share the link to my Padlet, my Padlet homepage and my Padlet video on the class Padlet page for my students to refer to. And I decided to take this two-stage approach because of one reason. And I did a case study to investigate how an intercultural exchange project affected my students' sense of agency with Professor Sakui at Kobe Shoin Women's University last year. And we learned that the project was highly effective in nurturing overall learner agency. However, the study indicated that the project did not promote the students' sense of growth as we had expected. So I thought an active intervention at this stage might benefit my students more. Now, let me show you two of my students' presentations and my suggestions and their revised version of the presentation. The first one is produced by Hanano. Okay, let's take a look. That was a very simple, nice and simple PowerPoint presentation, only with the slides and with no recording, no voice recording, okay? So this is a cover of her presentation. And here is the first page. She described her breakfast. And she said, she wrote, I eat 335 grams in total. And she made a graph using Excel and added a graph by pie chart on the right side. She did the same for lunch and dinner. And she added a summarize to the PowerPoint presentation. And you can see that she compared her diet and what my plate suggests. And I thought, oh, her diet is quite well balanced, I felt, much better than mine, I felt. And, you know, I took a look at these slides and I was thinking, oh, okay, what kind of suggestions can I make? And these are the suggestions that I sent to her. I said, make sure not to include irrelevant information in your slides. For example, the total weight of the food. But I didn't mention that. I wanted her to think about it. And I made some suggestions to improve her English expressions. And I said, please add some photos of your daily meals to make it interesting for the friends to see. And I said, I advise that maybe you want to include greetings at the beginning and a conclusive remark at the end. And she had 1 week to revise her presentation. And this is a revised version of her presentation. She added some voice. So please take a listen.
Hello, I'm Hanano. In this presentation, I'm going to tell you my ordinary meal on a day and how healthy my meals are. Breakfast. I usually eat bread, milk, meat, and vegetables. In side dishes, I eat leftovers from lunch and dinner on the previous day.
Okay, it goes like this, and she talked about her lunch, she talked about her dinner, and here is her conclusion. Okay, please take a listen.
I learned I'm taking too many grains, so I should eat fewer grains. And I also learned that I am not taking enough vegetables, so I want to take a lot of vegetables. Thank you for reading and listening. I hope you have enjoyed my presentation.
Okay. It was quite a nice surprise for me because she joined my school later than the other students. So she had to work extra hard to catch up. And perhaps because of that, because of, you know, the hard time she had to catch up, she was not so positive about, you know, speaking up in class. She was quite quiet in class, but she got the courage to do the recording for herself. And I was pretty much impressed by her effort. And this is what she wrote in the reflective comments. It was fun to think deeply and improve my PowerPoint to make it easy to understand for my Moldovan friends. I had learned some basic functions on PowerPoint at school, but now I can make more convincing presentations. I want to learn what other apps are available. So she seems to be quite happy with the progress that she made by herself. All right, here is a second presentation made by Ridika. She's a very hardworking student. So this is her original idea. She put the photo of her breakfast. I thought that was interesting because she has, you know, chocolate chip cookies maybe for breakfast. That was quite interesting for me. And she described her breakfast, and she also, you know, wrote her own analysis of her breakfast, referring to my plate. And she also included the comment about her breakfast, and she mentioned that she wanted to try and make breakfast for herself and to help her mom. So I gave her these suggestions. I told her, maybe you want to fix a simple breakfast referring to my plate and compare the breakfast you usually have and the one you fixed this time. And what about making a speech video? And you can show visuals by printing them out or using a computer and showing the screen on your side. Because she said she cannot use PowerPoint at home. Okay, so this is an alternative. And so I gave her some encouragement this way. And I also told her to show the source of the honey site you use for the research in the comment section of the post. You know, she wrote something about honey and she did research on the internet and she wrote about it on, at the comment. So I wanted to make sure that, she shows the source of the information because I thought that would be a very interesting skill for teenagers to learn for their future, especially because she said she wanted to be a doctor. So I thought that would benefit her future. Okay, and here is a video she created for her Moldovan friends. Please take a look.
Hello, I learned about my plate in the lesson. My plate is ideal nutrients balance in the meal. First, I researched about nutrients in my breakfast and compare with this chart. This is my one-day breakfast. These are chocolate cookies, yogurt, soy milk and honey. It looks delicious, doesn't it? But chocolate cookies made of a lot of sugar and butter, and my breakfast doesn't have protein, fruits and vegetables, so it's very unbalanced. This is my other day's breakfast. I follow up 3 nutrients and improve my breakfast. These are grain biscuit, scrambled egg, strawberries, avocado and yogurt. Syrup in the cup is honey. This biscuit doesn't contain sugar and oil. I like chocolate cookies better, but biscuit is healthier than those. At the end, I introduce you to honey's effect. Honey is very sweet, so you might think honey is not good to my health. But honey has a lot of good effects like this texture, and it can use for a variety of food. I often take honey with fruits or yogurt. I recommend to have a proper amount of honey. Of course, it's important to have a healthy meal, but I think arrange myself and enjoy meal is the most important thing. Let's enjoy the meal and stay healthy. Thank you.
Yeah, I see a little scientist in her. Okay, so she put up this video and also she put the link to the honey site on her post. And that was very interesting to see the comments from Moldovan friends. One of the friends wrote in the comment section that we eat cucumbers with honey. Have you ever tried that before? I haven't, so I gave it a try, and that was amazingly good. And I tried with carrot, and that was really good. So maybe you should give it a try. And the teacher of this project, who is really wonderful, Uriana, hi, Uriana, she made this comment, my parents had bees. That's really amazing, isn't it? So, but, sharing our ideas, we learn from each other, naturally, we learn about each other's culture this way. And here is a comment, reflective comment made by Rika, the speaker. It was interested to compare my plate with 5 main nutrients that we learned at school. I use dictionaries to learn many words to make my presentation. Through this task, I also learned that it's important to show the source of information by adding the link to the website I use for research. I wanted to make a good presentation for my friend, so I took videos about 20 times. Wow, she's much hard work than I am. So I think, what really pushed these students to work so hard is the authentic audience across the border. Having the friends around the same age in a foreign country and interacting them on the net, that must be really inspiring for them and encouraging for them. Here you can see some posts made by Moldovan students after my plate presentations. I was very fortunate to collaborate with a teacher in Moldova. Her name is Ms. Podaru. She is such a creative and committed teacher, and she chose a topic, a sound body in a sound line, in response to my students' presentation. And as you can see, my students responded to their presentations in a really enthusiastic manner. Lots and lots of comments putting below the Moldovan friends' presentations. That was so encouraging to me too. And that was interesting, the Moldovan friends, many of the Moldovan friends mentioned, it's important to be happy and laugh and exercise and relax and sleep. But as you can imagine, teenagers in Japan are so busy to study and do club activities. So some of them are really surprised to learn that relaxation is important for their health. So here is some feedback from my students about the interaction on Padlet. Moldovan students wrote something good about themselves at the introductory video. For example, I am positive. It's different from us, and I think it's great. One of the students wrote, and I thought so too. I learned that not all the things that I believe are always correct, another student said. And I didn't know that relaxation was so important for our health. It is so exciting to learn new things from my friends. So through this interaction, my students learned the importance of seeing things from different perspectives. Very fortunately, and we had a chance to do synchronous exchange on Google Meet. We chose Google Meet because that was a tool that Moldovan teacher has been using for many, many years. And I agreed to do that, even though that was a first time for me and I was a little scared, to be honest, but I decided to take up the challenge and do it. And the meeting was for 1 hour. And the first was a simple greeting from both ends. And my student did a my plate presentation. But this time, they had to do it with no use of PowerPoint and other digital tools to keep it simple because the connection can be not so good. And at this time, I didn't give any intervention. I left everything up to my students because I trusted that my students will be independent and confident enough to do it by themselves. And more than one student shared their ideas on the proverb, a sound mind in a sound body. So they did a presentation one by one. And we did a true or false quizzes and a question time from both ends. And it was about 1 hour. So to prepare for this exchange, in the bottom of the slide, you can see the two things that I did in class. So my students and I discussed and decided on the true or false quiz and questions. Actually, at this point, I try to, I try to stay back a little bit, stand back a little bit, and let them do the discussion by themselves. And they did quite well. They work now by themselves. And my students and I did a Google Meet practice. We only had 1 week to do the practice. And so I really didn't know how to use a Google Meet. So I was a little panicky, but I told myself this is not the end of the world and I've got to do it for my students. And we survived that. So I believe it was the end of March. At the end of March, we did a meeting. Yeah, it was the first time for my students and me to do the synchronous exchange. And that was, to the least, that was not very easy for us because the COVID-19 situation was really getting hard in Moldova. And it was the first time for me to manage this Google Meet thing. But anyway, we did it and we had a great time together. We exchanged lots of information. And I say that perhaps that was a big success. And here you can see my students' feedback. One of my students say, I used only words about the presentation. I used only words I knew because I thought my friends would not understand me if I said what I didn't understand. And I noticed that my play presentation I shared on Palette was too complicated. This girl put in too much there. So I tried not to cram information when I give a talk on Google Meet and spoke slowly and clearly. And one student said, I decided to change my topic to Japanese proverbs on food and health. It's because Moldovan students taught us the proverb, a sound mind and a sound body, and I thought they'll be interested in Japanese proverbs. So what we can see here is their effort to achieve their communicative goals. So they were thinking, okay, how can I communicate the best possible way with my friends overseas? And here is some feedback about the in-class discussions on the content of the quizzes. One student wrote, I learned that there are many opinions and perspectives about one thing. It was the first time to discuss this way in class, and it was exciting. Each of us had to have some concrete ideas to share in order to make decisions as a group. It was challenging. At first, discussion we did as a whole group, and it was tough. So I wanted to do it in small groups first, if we have another chance to discuss in groups. So I took up this feedback, and after this, when we did a discussion in class, I divided my students into pairs and small groups, and I let them do the discussions, and obviously they worked better than before. So I really appreciate this feedback from my students. So, these comments show that they were exploring ways to collaborate and solve problems by themselves. So after the Google Meet, we kept on going with interaction on Padlet. And the next topic was vacation. And the next topic was profession. And profession was, the last topic that we worked on. And as you can see, most of my students use PowerPoint, and they put some voices and sound effects on the PowerPoint. So I see that they have learned some digital skills through this project because of the encouragement they have gotten from their classmates and from the interaction, the stimulation through interaction with Moldovan friends. And that was quite impressive. That really made me feel happy. And at this moment, my students are writing letters, the physical letters with pen and pencil. And we are putting them together so that we can send a farewell message to Moldova. And Moldovan teacher very kindly is doing the same for us. And perhaps by the time, they come back to school in Moldova in September, those emails will be delivered and we will be able to finish up with a celebration, big celebration with physical letters and stuff. Okay, now let me move on to the next project, the second project, which is really different and for the younger learners. I call this project Rainbow Project. And this is a project with a public school in Spain. I have known the teacher of this at this school for several years now. We've been, working together very well. And she's very positive, very cheerful, and good communicator. And we always keep in touch very closely using Messenger. Okay, in this project from Spain, 22 grade 3 students participated. And from Japan, 6 grade 3 students participated. So which means each of my students had 3 or 4 partners in Spain because of the size of my school. And we exchanged cards 3 times through airmail. So all the interaction among students were done using paper and, the airmail and pen and crayons. And we started in December last year, and we just finished up this project. And the teachers, kept in touch, as I said, through the messenger, and we shared the photos to see how, to show how the project is going on by sharing the photographs on Google Drive. So we will always be in touch. Whenever we do this kind of an intercultural project, my students work on the research on the country that they are interacting with. So in this case, my younger learners did a research on Spain in class together. And here is a short video from the research that they're doing in class. Please take a look.
Let me show you how to do it, okay? So first, you need to take a look at, what does it say? What does it say?
Index.
Index, that's right, index. So look at the index and please look for Spain. Where's Spain?
Excuse me.
Hi, can you wait for a minute?
Spain.
Yes, and you can see the pages. All right, so what is your question? Okay, please ask me, how do you spell Spain?
How do you spell Spain?
All right, S P A I N.
Yeah, so this way, they have learned some research skills, how to use the index and to ask me how do you spell that. Okay. Now let me show you the first stage of this project. It was December, so we started as a Christmas card exchange. At this stage, students thought what they wanted to write on their cards as Christmas cards, reflecting on what they have learned in their regular lessons. So they took out the textbooks and dictionary from the back and they checked. And I elicited ideas from them and wrote sentence patterns on the whiteboard and key vocabulary, by eliciting the words from them and wrote, the vocabulary items on the whiteboard. And the students, sort of what they wanted to write and wrote down on the card. Each student had a different message on the card. And then I asked the students what they wanted to learn about their Spanish friends, even though they had never met before, and they made questions together. Okay, so this process is quite messy, as all the creative processes are. But I believe that this process is very important. And, through this in-class collaboration, they learn, to think deeply and reflect and discuss among themselves using both English and Japanese. Very chatty kids, And one of the students in this class is heavily dyslexic, and that student said, Mari Sensei, I will write the best message ever. And the student did. And actually, all the students wrote a different message and drew a different picture for each friend, even though they have to make 3 or 4 Christmas cards for their friends. I was so amazed. And because of COVID-19, it took a long time for delivery. Both the Spanish teacher and I were a little worried about this, and it took 6 weeks for delivery. And you can see the Spanish friends holding those Christmas cards. And we waited for six weeks, and we got the card from Spain. And what's good about, doing this project with Spanish friends is that, their English level match with my students' English level. So as you can see, the letters are very simple. So my students can tackle the English and tackle the text by themselves, and they figure out how, what they're reading on the pages. So Spanish students basically wrote very simple stuff like colors and food and pets and favorite things to do. And by using those cards and what was written on the cards, I did this activity. Can you imagine what I have done in class with my students? Yeah, my students studied the concept of statistics. They took a look at the cards and investigated how many students liked blue, how many students liked yellow, how many students liked pink and stuff, and did the same thing about the favorite food. And look at this picture. Can you imagine what this girl is thinking of? Like, Can you take a close look at what's on the table? Yeah, that is a copy of the envelope that I got from Spain. So now she's taking a look at the envelope, and she's learning how the address was written by the Spanish teacher. It is kind of opposite from the way we write the address in Japan. So that kind of study is really interesting, hopefully, for my students. And I share these photos, Spanish teacher, the teacher sent to me. I share these photos using the class Padlet. So the parents, my students and the parents can see at home. And also I printed out these photographs because they are so pretty and beautiful. And, my students can see the smiles of their friends. So I printed them out and handing them to my students too. Okay, so here is our second stage. Please take a look at the picture carefully, closely. All right, so this boy is holding the card from Spain above here. And below that, he's showing her own card back to him. Can you imagine what the next stage is? If you have any ideas, please put in the chat box. Okay. Compare the picture. All right, so the second stage was coloring exchange. Students read and looked at the cards from their friends carefully and made a coloring card for each friend. So I told them, hey, let's make the cards that your friends will be happy to see. Okay, so there was so-called nurie. So I call them nurie project. Yeah, so let's make a beautiful nurie paper for your friends. And as you saw in the previous picture and this one, you can see the empathetic interaction with the friends that they have never met. In this picture, you can see on top, on the above picture, you can see the little snowman. So my students drew the picture of the snowman in the New Year picture, okay, with lots of hearts. And after 6 weeks, we got the coloring card from Spain too, of course. Look at that. Look at those amazing pictures. Very artistic, very pretty, and each one is so unique. And my students were so excited to see the cards. All right, stage 3. What's next? What do you think my students have done? The girl is holding the scissors. Okay. So at this stage, my students read the coloring cards from Spain class, helping each other. They always help each other to figure out what is written on that card. And students color the pictures at home. Okay. And students cut apart the messages from the colored pictures in the following lessons. So this is a picture that you can see on the slide. You see, my students cutting the card after coloring the cards. Okay. And finally, the students wrote their farewell messages to return the colored picture to their friends. Now, please take a look. Look at this new card carefully, closely. Can you see an empathetic expression on this card? Have you noticed something? Yeah, if you got any ideas, please put in the chat box. Ruthie, have you got anything?
Hang on, let's see. Hearts, says Jackie. Yeah, I noticed the hearts too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So in the original card of the Spanish friends, there are the heart symbols around the card. So my students on the pink card put the heart around the message.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I didn't make, any comments about the heart. I just thought, oh, they are cute. But my students responded in this way. Kids know better than adults sometimes.
Kim says, waiting with popcorn for another friend.
Popcorn?
It looks like popcorn, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, there were some popcorns too. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you can see, all of these lovely cards that my students made. You can see the picture of the wolf near the center. This student drew the picture of the wolf because the Spanish friend's favorite animal was a wolf. So there is a way, her responded to, to make her friend happy. And as is often the case, something unexpected happened. When we finished making the cards and shared the photograph with my teacher friend, in Spain, she sent back to me the message and she wrote with lots of heart marks and kiss marks. And she wrote, hey, my students want a video of your students reading messages. All right, I said, okay. And my students came to the class and she didn't know that, I was going to record a message. But anyway, we took up the challenge and with very little time to practice, my students, had a video message here. Okay, so please take a look for a moment.
Yeah, Abuela. Thank you for your picture. Your picture is pretty and amazing. It was fun to color. Thank you for your letters and lovely picture. It was very fun to exchange letters with you. Your friend forever. Love, Saya. Dear Manuel. Thank you for your picture. Your picture is mysterious and amazing. It was difficult to color. Thank you for letters and amazing picture. It was very fun to exchange letters with you. Your friend forever. Love Saya.
Yeah. All right. She said it was difficult to cuddle. Those kind of honest comments, we adults usually do not make, but they do. And I think that's so wonderful. Okay. And the Spanish teacher, loved to take photos. So she sent me lots and lots of pictures, which really appreciated. And I shared these lovely photographs and the videos of my students and everything on the class Padlet page for the students and parents to enjoy taking a look at home. And just last Monday, we received these beautiful pictures, beautiful final farewell cards from Spain, and Rainbow Project is now complete. All right, so in this session, I focus on students' learning and growth while they're on these projects. But what about me as a teacher? Well, as most of the creative processes are, it was kind of messy sometimes, and there were some unexpected things happening during the course and the collaboration. And I can, quite honestly say that I have learned so much through these experiences, thanks to the collaboration with my peers in those countries, especially in this case, the teacher in Moldova and Spain, by working together and solving problems. And discussing with my students, like, what should I do next? What should we do next? How can we make the students in Moldova and Spain happy, and how can we make this interaction more meaningful together? I think I have learned some skills together with my students and collaborative partners. So I really, really appreciate these experiences. Thank you very much, everybody. This is my presentation. Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Okay.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you very much
Okay.
for a very insightful presentation.
Any questions? Let me close the slide now.
Sure. Let's go back and look in the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay. Gabby said that some of your ideas can be adapted to mainstream classrooms too.
Yeah, actually, I just finished a project with my plate with a higher level students too. Yeah.
Also, Barb said the difference between practice and rehearsal really showed with the student who practiced 20 times. Bless her heart. Yeah.
She uploaded that video, I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, she's such a hard worker. And she inspired me so much.
Marion said she appreciated the students' self-reflection and also your hands-off approach with the students.
Yeah.
Letting them work it out themselves. Did you give them help to calculate the percentages in the My Plate?
No, I didn't do anything, and I don't know actually how they did it. Yeah, I don't know how they did it. That really beyond me. I don't know how to do it myself with even my very simple breakfast. Yes. Hi, Uriana. Uriana is can you see Uriana on screen? She's a partner, my partner in Moldova.
Wonderful.
Yeah. She's amazing.
There you are.
She's amazing, yeah.
I wanted to, good morning, in my country is morning now, and I greet everybody. You are welcome to Moldova. So we spoke about many kinds of food, and I want to say that the purpose of learning English is to discover the world, and communicate with people. And I want to mention that the I Earn international projects are a perfect way of doing this task, yes. And I appreciate this kind of learning English through projects because it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. Yes, and I want to say that I was very lucky to meet Mrs. Nakamura. Yes, I was really very lucky to meet this person. It's a personality. And as I mentioned in my Google Meet lesson, that when I was a child, I thought that Japan, I associated Japan with a beautiful young girl who was a ballerina. We spoke about that with Mrs. Nakamura. After meeting Mrs. Nakamura, I understood that Japanese people are not only outside beautiful, they are inside great too. And working with these nice little children, little people, yes, I may say, it was a wonderful experience for me to study, to learn a lot of things from them, how to behave, how to study, how to watch the world, yes. Thank you for participation and thank you for nice words that you appreciated my pupils. Together we discover really the world. Thank you very much.
Viviana. Thank you. Thank you. I've been very, very fortunate to work with you.
Any other last minute questions that we missed in the chat box? Oh, there was a question about the postal system. I missed that.
What system?
The postal system? Is it Gabi's question?
That's my question, yes. Okay. So I'm just wondering, you did the mail exchange with the grade 3 students by airmail. That's like a picture. Did you have any problems with delays and?
Yeah, usually, thank you, that's a good question. Usually, you know, between Spain and Japan, it takes about 10 days or 2 weeks. But because of the COVID-19, perhaps this time it took 6 weeks, much longer. So at some point I was very, very worried. But Spanish teacher is like, you're okay, don't worry, and we'll be fine. But one thing I made sure is to scan everything. Gabby, thank you for the question. This is a very important point I missed to mention. I take everything, you know, in scanner. So I scan everything. Yeah, in case.
Just in case.
Yeah, in all the projects, that's what I do. Yeah.
So I mean, it's so exciting to receive like a real letter, but I know with like the situation with Australia too and Japan, the postal service has just been up in the air. So I was wondering how you cope with it.
Yeah, so I've been doing similar things with Slovenia, Turkey, and Uruguay, and the US, the other countries, and only one occasion I had a problem. One package was lost. That one was from the USA to Japan.
Can I ask you one more question then?
Sure.
At your school, do you have these projects running with different groups at different levels all the time? So do you have any number of projects running at the same time?
No, not regularly. It really depends on when I find a good partner. Yeah, pretty much depends on, you know, if I can find somebody that I genuinely want to work with, because finding a, you know, dedicated teacher like Miss Williana is not easy. Yeah, that is not easy. So I'm very careful about whom to work with, to be honest. And when I find, you know, the sincere and hardworking and creative teacher, then I do it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, at this moment, I'm doing 2 more projects.
No, they sound like
quite slowly.
fantastic opportunity. So I would love to participate as a student or a student, certainly. So thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Namiko is raising her hand. Do you want to unmute yourself, Nami?
Yes. So sorry, I can't turn my video on for some reason, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation, and it was just very inspiring. One of the things I loved about, the pen pal exchange, especially since we kind of live in this digital era, it's wonderful to see, the future generation of these kids who have been raised in this experience age to experience, the old way of communicating. And I feel like it's a very deeper way of making connections. We started that way with our project as well because of COVID. So we haven't been able to communicate digitally with our students in Nepal. And so we did the same exact thing. We actually started with letters, and we're looking forward to actually having real communication with them soon over the internet. But I thought it's good to mix the old and the new.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, that's great because the younger the students are, the tangible thing.
Yes.
Process is so important, and they always smell the paper. That's so cute.
So cute.
Because paper, crayon and paper smell differently.
Yes.
Yeah. So they always smell. Oh.
Yeah,
So
I remember from my childhood, especially Japanese stationery is so special. And I remember when I was writing letters, once I, returned to Japan, all my friends, even though they were university friends, they were all like, oh, send me more Japanese stationery, write your letters using Japanese stationery. So I think there is meaning in writing, the old way for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yoko also has her hand up.
Hi, Mari-chan. Thank you for awesome presentation. I have one quick question. Yeah, I also had done the similar project by exchange the gift box.
Oh.
Yeah, to Russia and Taiwan.
But
after that, it is hard to continue the project to keep in touch and by exchanging. So the first step is easy to hey, hello, introduction, and to get in the culture exchange. But later on, what is the better project or better topic? If you have something, could you share?
Yeah, rather than having that, any concrete ideas, but I think that would be a good idea for you and a collaborative partner to have a meeting before starting and I have just a little detailed, something like a timeline. Like first we exchange the letters, and then second time let's exchange some gift, and then let's do something online once, and then next month maybe we can exchange cards with this content. So maybe that would be a good idea to plan the timeline when you have the first meeting with a partner teacher.
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay, I'm going on. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe coloring project. Yes, nice and simple. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, no questions. Anybody?
We do have 30 minutes.
Oh, Marianne,
go.
It's more, I think it's more like what I want to say is a kind of my impression. I want to ask I can imagine that if you suddenly had students doing an online exchange, my Japanese students would be very tongue-tied. And so I'm very interested in the way you worked on the timeline, because when they have to wait some time before they can meet their exchange partners online, then that must build up a kind of anticipation and excitement.
Yeah.
And also to develop their confidence before they actually are speaking more spontaneously.
I think that is a really good point. In case of the project with Moldova, we decided to have the Google Meet after having several months of interaction online, asynchronous way on Padlet. So my students got used to showing their faces on Padlet. So they see each other, in a safe way. Then after that, we did a Google Meet, the real-time connection. So I think that was a good approach. Yeah, that was a good way. So Marianne, if you are doing the online lessons, maybe that can be a lot easier. Yeah, regular online lessons.
Right.
Because my students have been used to doing, lessons online. So they've been always seeing themselves on screen.
Right.
And the teenagers always touching their hair.
Yeah.
So maybe. Yeah.
And I really like one of the earlier ones, the student, she wasn't memorized, and she wasn't trying to pretend she was either. She had the paper there, and I thought that was really good because, everything doesn't have to be kind of perfectly prepared in that way. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah. I told my students that this is not a speech contest. You don't have to be perfect. So the purpose is to make friends, so be friendly and just show how, exactly how you are in daily life. So I think that is important. Not to correct every mistake that my students make. I think that is a key point.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Carla asked a question. Do you try to brief your students about do's and don'ts when communicating with their foreign counterparts before you start the project?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Again, this is a really good question. Just one don't is not to exchange any personal information, like Instagram account. Yeah, I once had this issue with, when my elementary school students, project with a country. I didn't expect they had an Instagram account or anything. They're elementary school kids. But one of my students, one of the partner schools students wrote the Instagram account. So that caused a little problem. So, these days I always tell my students not to share any social media accounts or real home address and phone numbers and stuff, everything. They don't know phone numbers these days, but those things, with a friend. Yeah. They know what to do. So I don't say do's, but just one thing, don't share your personal information. Did I answer the question? I hope so.
Hold on. How do you find the teachers to work with, since it's so important to find equally dedicated teachers?
Right, that's not easy. That is not easy. I have done 2 projects through IARN. IARN is a really good organization, a huge organization, international organization, and each teacher has to register themselves and pay in Japanese yen, 3,000 yen per year. And during the process, there is a kind of a screening process to check the identity of the teacher and the website of the school and things like that. So I recommend IARN to find good teachers. And I also registered myself on Flat Stanley project page, and I get some inquiries. Sometimes the teachers that come through that site are more relaxed and casual. So some suddenly stop contacting me. So yeah, and a good thing to do is if you find dedicated and enthusiastic and creative teacher, then you keep in touch with a teacher and keep on doing the project with a different class at your school. Yeah, so that's what I recommend.
Okay, we still have a bit of time left and Barb is still with us. If there are any last minute questions for either Barb or Marie, this would be a great time. Regional Flat Stanley Project.
Yeah, that is a website.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I earn. Hi, Barb.
Back. That was so fascinating.
That was great.
Thank
you. I'm just so impressed with the way teachers leverage technology to make the most of it.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the way that students can learn so quickly about everything when it comes to technology. Yeah, some of those students are now better than I am.
Yeah, and some of the teachers groups I'm in, the advice is ask a 13-year-old to set it up for you. Or tell you how to use it.
Yep, exactly.
I think Barb's challenge is to appeal to both the more innocent looking Japanese students who were so amazed by the Moldovan students who seemed so sophisticated.
Yeah.
Right? So writing a global textbook, you've got to find something that's not going to offend either group.
Yeah.
That will appeal to many types of kids in different cultures. How do you do that and still be creative? I mean,
well, that's what makes you creative.
Forces you to be.
I mean, the most creative reader that I ever wrote had like 20 vocabulary words in it. It's just when you work with those parameters, that's the fun. Is so. And like I said, we've seen the book used in so many countries and it's used differently in every single classroom. But, obviously a lot of inexperienced teachers use our first edition had the picture of the textbook on one side and a script on the other side, because I think I've got it here somewhere. But, oh, this is second edition, so they're black and white now. But we had a color picture of the textbook page, and then on the back it was what the teacher should say, because a lot of the teachers using Let's Go either don't speak English or have never taught. Right, so think language school, and when a new teacher comes in, the first thing they do is say, "Oh, you can have the kids' classes," because you don't get a vote, and anybody can teach children. They only know 10, they only have to learn 10 vocabulary words in an hour. So, that's a lot of the people, but we also have a lot of really experienced teachers who like using Let's Go because they can finish the language part in very short time, and then they have all the extra time for creating digital books or for doing international exchange projects. Or, we found an unexpected market in ESL programs, actually. We were designed as the antidote for ESL textbooks, but we found a market in newcomers programs because students get fluent really quickly, but they don't gain accuracy. And research shows that, when you only have a short amount of time, explicit focus on language is the quickest way to get that accuracy. So I guess it's what I like to call it is for one thing, the space for learning, right? There's enough recycling for students to pick up the language and enough places to practice. And like the multisensory stuff is built in because not all teachers know that they should do that. So that's why you have chants and listen and point and, and physically showing teachers that they should toss a beanbag to the other kid or something. But we also include a space to teach so that the teachers, when they are confident, they can use the book as a jumping off place. The teacher's book had suggestions for, projects that you could take on, for example. I think we have a new reading on coding and robotics, and, we're all like 21st century now. And it's really fun to have a chance to revise and make those changes. We had to get rid of cassettes and records because kids didn't know what they were anymore. We left CDs though, because a lot of teachers still have CD players. A lot of teachers still have cassette players. And a lot of us really miss the counters on those cassette players.
I do. There's a question in the chat box. Doing classes online nowadays is still more common, considering some restrictions because of the pandemic. How do you decide the amount of tech-enriched or tech-based activities versus traditional ones in your classes?
That sounds like it's for both Mari and
That
me.
could be for both, yeah. What are the factors you consider using activities?
Well, all of my classes are online still because I'm 61, asthmatic, and I'm not vaccinated. So I'm not going into a classroom anytime soon. But unluckily, I mean, my students are all in Kyushu. So, that lets us keep working together. But like my students are on their parents' computers, which are really old, or their mom's iPad. So we aren't doing any of that, like screen sharing, working on a shared Google Doc together. It really is me teaching and them responding. And Japan is a really interesting country that way, right? The things in Japan are really, really high tech. The people, not so much. I mean, we thought we had this really great value added thing in the 3rd edition to have a CD-ROM, fabulous computer games. And the feedback at workshops was the CD won't play. And we said, well, it's not a CD. You need to put it in your computer. And my students say they don't know how to do that. And I said, well, they should ask their parents. They said their parents don't know how to do that. And so for the 4th edition, we have a CD in the back of the book. And the games are now online, which everybody knows how to do. So I think, but like the text-based thing, I always try to include tech-enriched stuff in my classes when I'm face-to-face, but it doesn't matter what tech you use, I don't think. I mean, CD players are tech, cameras are tech. I mean, you use the tech that you've got, whatever is going to support the pedagogy. Like you decide your lesson first, and then you figure out what the best technology is to support it. So, like having the kids go take pictures of things, or having them get on a Skype with somebody. We did back way long ago, we just did a voice thread of alphabet book and then let other people around the world add words to the alphabet book so they could hear all these different English accents, and so they could hear that people in Hungary speak English, or that most people speaking English don't sound like their teacher, right? And they got to hear that kids in the US at the same age were learning the same alphabet sounds. So anyway, but that's my side. Mari is like way tech, so I'll let her answer that.
Well, at my school currently, younger, students, younger children are having lesson, in class, and all the students are having lesson online. I figure that, kids work hard and kids have fun either way anyway. They love to interact, and they love, have English classes. They love to sing, either they're online or in class. It's really interesting to see that young girls and boys dancing along in their room as if they're in the classroom. That's really amazing. And sometimes I see some of the students who are kind of autistic, they seem to be more relaxed at home. I see that I figured that out, and that's really interesting. And I've been using Padlets. I started to use Padlets about 2 years ago for the intercultural exchange project. And then when the pandemic came, I figured that that was a great help to keep things going. And now, you know, some of the classes are done in class, but I still use Padlet to manage the homework and for the parents to see how they're progressing. So I'm using both, you know, the in-class instruction and, you know, Padlet system. So that works too. And yeah, I'm getting the hang of Zoom lessons. And my teenage students seem to love Zoom lessons very much because they can share screen by themselves. Yeah, they do. They make their PowerPoint and share the PowerPoint by themselves in pair. So that really helps. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I was going to say also, I think sometimes teachers are more impressed with technology than kids are. Was it that said that the like technology is everything that was invented after you were born. Everything else is just stuff, right? So like the teachers get really excited about some shiny new toy, and kids are not impressed just because it's shiny and new. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking. Actually, I have to change my password for VoiceThread because it's been more than a year. So I'm trying to get my link to it. But voicethread.com is the site. And so I'm trying to get but it's a really nice, you see, maybe I'll upload it to YouTube. So, but voicethread.com is free. I think one of the challenges with sharing it is because a lot of the things are private, of course, you know, so it makes it challenging for people to be able to share it, but it's really nice when you're working with students.
Okay.
I will be happy to share the VoiceThread with anybody that wants it. Just send.
I'm curious too.
You got my email. I shared it earlier. barbsaka@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to email you a link to the VoiceThread.
Great. So in the last few minutes, if people have announcements about other JALT events or other language events, this is a good time to make your announcements. Yoko, you wanted to start? Go ahead.
Yes, Ruth. Could you give co-host authority if possible?
Sure. Hold on.
Thank you. Yep. Hi, I'm Yoko Takano. I am a program chair of Nagoya JALT. I'd like to announce the July 4th Teaching Young Learners Forum. So I'd like to share the screen, and this forum has thank you, has a mission to the fundraising. So I'd like to share the screen. And oops, could you give a few seconds? Oh, sorry. I don't have authority at the right to share the screen.
Okay, hang on. Okay. Okay. Try now.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Ruth. Okay. So here we go. So July 1st, Nagoya JALT event of Facebook page. And let me share the screen. Here we go. Yes. So can you see the screen? Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Events on all Zoom, free of charge. So plenary speaker Nick Bilbro made a hands-up project, which is helping the children in Palestine to give the equal education right. So title, Online Collaborative Intercultural Language Learning. So he is a plenary speaker, and you could see the great lineup. So Namiko Tsuruta from Tokyo JALT, Nicholas J. Wilson from Nagano JALT, Masako Moriwaki from Nagano JALT, Yukiko Yamami from Nagoya JALT, and Emily Chan from Niigata and Jackson Lin from Gifu collaborated to explain the ALT perspective. So you could see the registration form right now. So sign up today. I'd like to give the Zoom link and abstract. So I'll copy and paste and to put in a chat box for the registration form. So don't miss out the great event on July 1st. We have a church. To do my self-promotion. Next week, JALT School Owner Mini Conference will be held on Zoom too. I'm also the presenter. So my title is 20 Years Recipe, How to Make a Better Classroom for Community. So I'd like to share the Okidoki Eiko School history based on 25 years history. Thanks to Barbara Murray and lots of teachers and events. Yes, I am finally to share the school history and how to make a better classroom in JALT School Owners Sake Forum. This is not free. You have to pay fee, but that before June 21st, early bird ticket, you could buy the ticket. But if you are a SIG member, you're free. You can join that forum. Yes. So this event also would like to share a little bit. I'm sorry. Leslie is eager to promote. That's why I have mission to share the screen too. So here is from Leslie Ito. So JALT Owners, School Owners SIG, next Sunday. So my session is from 1 to 1:50. If you want to join the mini conference, you could see the variety of speaker, Ben Shalom, Sean Gallagher, Yoko, and Alex is great, and Kenny, yes. So thank you for listening my announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoko. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, Jackie.
So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you. Wow, thank you very much to Barb and Mari for beautiful, beautiful presentations today. So interesting, really lovely. And also to Gabi and Ruthie for putting this together and continuing to put together fantastic young learners events. So thank you very much. Yeah, it's amazing. You guys are great. So my first thing is not about an event, but if you'd like to give feedback about today's event, there's a link in the chat box. And if you have ideas for future events, we are always open for hearing those. So that would be lovely. If you can click on that and give us some feedback, that would be great. The next one is an event, and that's on July 2nd, just before Yoko's. On July 2nd, Zoltan Dornier is going to be talking about, of course, motivation, but specifically about long-term motivational persistence. So if you're interested in that, please come along. It's our State of the Chapter event, but he's
highly recommended. He's amazing.
He is amazing. I feel so honored that he's coming, and can't wait for that. So,
best way to leverage being online.
Indeed, yes, because he's very far away from us at the moment. So yes, hopefully you'll be able to join us for that. Yeah, for sure. And the last one is the last one is an event that we are still working on, but that didn't work. Sorry. Oh man, sorry. Okay. The last one is an arts event, using art or using creativity in the classroom. It's a social event, so we don't have a speaker per se, but just sharing ideas with your fellow teachers and educators and such. So we're working on days and times. If you have a suggestion, when would be a good time to do that, like weeknights or during the weekend or whatever, we'd love to hear that. That would be great. And we will share the details, of course, when we're kind of finished sorting them all out. But this was a, sorry. Here is the sort of thing that our social chair Brennan put together. Just drinks, conversation, talk about creativity, talk about art. Do you use it in the classroom to teach lessons inside and outside? So very free sort of topics, but that's what we have coming up, and hopefully we'll see lots of you at those. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, if there are no more announcements, we want to say thank you again for fabulous afternoon of presentations. Thank you, Mari. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you,
Great.
Tokyo JALT and Children's Day.
Thank you very much for everything, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Yep.
And by the way, our next TYL event is going to be on the 24th of October. So I'm giving everybody plenty of time.
No excuse to be busy.
But certainly a big thank you to Mari and Barbara today. So fantastic presentations. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us be part of your afternoon.
Yeah. Fantastic participants as well.
Yeah, it's a great turnout. I'm really impressed.
Yay. All right, everyone. Thanks again. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.